Hello, I'm Ani Abrahamyan. I'm the director of Ali Khanyan National Science Laboratory, or the Yerevan Physics Institute. It's a supreme pleasure and a great honor for me to be participating in this workshop celebrating the 90th anniversary of our academician, Robert Avakian. Many of you know what an extraordinary and remarkable human being Robert Avakian was. He was a high energy accelerator physicist that had worked at a number of international facilities. He had worked at the Stanford Linear Accelerator at Stanford University, at the Hermes experiment in Daisy, Germany, and of course in Armenia on the Arus electron synchrotron. Robert Avakian was in many ways the epitome or the full embodiment of the national character of Armenia, a character forged in fire in the face of many difficulties, but always standing up and thinking about what's next and moving forward without any complaints and showing great joy for living, celebrating in every possible occasion and hospitality beyond imagination. In many ways, while Robert Avakian displayed all these characteristics of Armenian men, he was also remarkably different than most people. While he was a forged high-energy physicist, he actually was paying attention. He was paying attention to trends all over the world. He realized that high-energy physics was becoming a legacy of only the very wealthiest countries in the world. In Armenian, we have a saying, science is an expensive hobby. And particularly high-energy physics became obvious was an expensive hobby for Armenia. Robert Avakian realized many things. He knew that in order for Armenia to be respected and be competitive and be on the global stage, that Armenia had to participate in high energy physics. We had to be a part of the global humanities search and research and extending the frontiers of knowledge in order to understand the nature of matter. He knew that, but he also knew that science had a special responsibility in Armenia. He fully understood what is a national laboratory of Armenia. He knew that the national laboratory had duties to improve the health of its people, increase the wealth of its population, and yes, even protect the safety and the safety of the borders for its people. Many people who study different areas of physics, particularly high energy physics, wouldn't be so flexible, so understanding, and so moving. But Robert Avakian was very special in this way. He actually visited me at the University of Notre Dame. He wanted to come and see what we were doing in the nuclear science laboratory at Notre Dame. It's a low energy nuclear physics facility. So he came, discussed with my colleagues about what were the science questions being addressed in low energy nuclear physics. The primary focus at the University of Notre Dame's Nuclear Science Laboratory is nuclear astrophysics. We have become world renowned in that area. So the major concern there is understanding the birth and death of stars and the evolution of stellar life in producing the elements that we see in the universe. So Robert, after spending some time discussing with our people at Notre Dame, decided that this was a valuable pursuit for Armenia. He sent us 2 of his graduate students to get experience in our laboratory and to return to Armenia with that experience and move forward. But one very important role that Robert played, besides accepting and moving on, was that he actually played a very significant role in convincing the ministers in various ministries in the government of Armenia that the cyclotron was an important start for Armenia. He really understood and believed that this was going to change things for Armenian health. I think historians will in some years realize what a game changer this cyclotron was in Armenia, or is going to bring about. Robert Avakian was tirelessly visiting various ministries, trying to persuade them of the uses of such an instrument like the cyclotron. He was convinced that both research could be done on such a facility as well as starting nuclear medicine in Armenia. Many of you may know that Armenia has one of the largest morbidities per capita from non-communicable diseases, mostly cancers, in the entire world. Something like 6.5% of the GDP of Armenia is lost from the deaths or morbidities of people who don't reach retirement age. And this is specifically from non-communicable diseases, and these are pre-COVID numbers. So I don't know what's going to happen afterwards. But Robert Avakian was convinced that this would make a big difference. And in fact, Robert Avakian, with his former student, Albert Avedisian, really gave the spark for starting this area of research to produce new isotopes, produce the isotopes, and then support the building of this oncology center very close to Alikhanyan, right next door in Yerevan. The cyclotron that was purchased was made operational in 2019. It was actually put together in 2015 and only made operational in 2019. I visited Robert for a glass of wine one evening in his apartment after the cyclotron was working, and I whispered in his ear that the cyclotron was now working. He turned around and gave me one of those amazing smiles, and he said, "I know, I heard." So the oncology center became a lifesaver for Armenia during this COVID shutdown in 2020. The borders were closed. The people of Armenia that could afford it typically went overseas to other countries to be diagnosed. But during the COVID period, it could all be done in Armenia and at much lower costs than they would have paid for if they traveled to other countries. Robert Avakian was born in 1931, but he was one of the youngest and most modern thinkers around. He adapted to change, he learned and took every opportunity to create some new advances forward. He was always thinking about what's the next step with what we have. Moving forward, never complaining that he didn't get the big cyclotron that he was dreaming of, but trying to make full use of the one that we had, thinking about what experiments could be done, how they could be done, what isotopes could be made. So Robert Avakian was the chair of the Union of Armenian Physicists. And when I visited in 2009, he actually made me a member of that Armenian Union of Physicists. Now a group of diaspora Armenian physicists have taken up the idea, and we're actually working on it. What Robert wanted to do at the time was to enlist all the diaspora Armenian physicists as well. We started with me, with Yuri Oganessian and a few others. So now we're actually going to bring to reality Robert's idea. and try to get diaspora Armenian physicists and other scientists to join this union and pay some small amount of dues that could actually help to support students studying physics in Armenia. Robert Avakian was in all ways a remarkable human being. I am very honored to have known him, honored to call him a friend, and honored to participate in this celebration.